right, everyone, welcome to another episode of UX Pathways, and I have the honor of being joined by Jennifer Homintoski. Jen, how are
Hello.
you today?
I'm great. How are you today?
Excellent. Glad to have you on the podcast. I know we've been talking about joining for a while, and you've been in so many things that I've run. I'm just so excited to have you here. You've
Thank
had
you.
a great career, and I just love for you to share a little bit about your role right now. So, what is your current role in the industry, and could you talk about your journey?
Okay, sure. Thank you so much. And thank you for your kind words. That does mean a lot to me. Currently, my role is I own Lakeside Accessibility, which is a Cleveland-based company, and we provide training for assistive technology. We do assessments for accessibility, which goes hand in hand with UX, as you know. I do consulting and we do workplace evaluations to help make things accessible. We do all kind of things that are related to accessibility, which is definitely related to user design. So really, my current role, it's at the intersection of assistive technology and user experience. So on the teaching side, I help people figure out what adaptations will support them best,
Mhm.
and that could be things like screen readers, magnification, speech to text, alternative input types, accessibility settings on computers and phones. And then we translate that into real world routines. So, how to write and read email, join meetings, browse the web, manage files, use workplace applications efficiently. And a big part of my job is troubleshooting and coaching because what works in theory doesn't always work on someone's specific device, in their apps, or for their goals. And the end goal for me is always independence and confidence, not just knowing that a feature is there if they need it. And then on the evaluation side, which is the more UX related side, I look at software and digital experiences through an accessibility lens. And often I'm using the same tools that my clients use, like screen readers or keyboard only navigation. And when something that I'm testing creates a barrier, I document what's happening, what the
Mm.
expected behavior should be, how it impacts someone who's trying to complete the task. And I'll share recommendations with the designers and the developers so they can prioritize their fixes and improve the experience. Uh, and I really do enjoy that part because it connects individual lived experiences to the product decisions that can really help a lot of people at once. A lot of times, things that help for accessibility help people
Mhm.
overall. We think that accessibility only applies to a small percentage of people, but it actually really is hand in hand with good user design. And and so, yeah, when we do that, we give like the narrative, what we were doing, how we were doing it, what was our goal, what we're trying to do. For example, sign into a website or find a bank balance or whatever it is. And then when things go wrong, we talk about how we tried to troubleshoot it, what level of skill that would require. You know, is this a new user or somebody who's advanced? And then when we provide feedback, at least we include when we can get it, the code, so the coders know exactly where to go, and references for things like Section 508 and the WC3 to help people understand, you know, what we're trying to convey needs to happen as part of their design of the system app, whatever.
Wow.
So
I mean, that is that's impressive. I mean, there's a lot there to unpack
thank you.
and helping a lot of people out there. I mean, I think that's one thing I think is common that I really think about in user experience is trying to be an advocate for that consumer. But how did you get here? How did you end up where you are?
Like the Beatles song, The Long and Winding Road. And that's true for a lot of people. There's not many people who do exactly what I do, but a lot of us get here through very unique paths, and that really brings a lot of perspective, I think, to the work we do because it is so diverse. So for me, around the end of college, I was working in general IT as technical support um, for a major company, and I really enjoyed the problem solving side of it. Um, it was really, I mean, that was a little earlier in people's computer use. So people weren't as apt to be able to go find things, find answers. There was no asking, your phone. Um, and so when we could come up with a solution, I always just really felt great about that and helping somebody do whatever they're trying to do. Um, Around that same time, my mom's vision had started declining due to macular degeneration, and she would before she got help at an agency, a nonprofit that worked with people with low vision. She'd ask me things like, is there a way to make this easier to see? Can I make it a little bigger? Can I change the colors a little bit? It's too bright, things like that. And so I would dig in and find what I could find, which unfortunately for her was kind of primitive at that time. But um, and while she eventually connected with somebody who was an assistive tech person, but I had started to learn it on my own because I was trying to help her with her practical everyday life. She's very independent, um, managed all of her own bills and her house and work, and didn't stop working due to her vision decline. Um, and being able to help her as best I could really meant a lot to me, just not only as her daughter, but because I really enjoy helping people. So a few years and a few roles, a few jobs later, I came across a posting, and this is when I lived in New York State, for someone with strong computer skills who was willing to learn adaptive software and do training support. And I remember reading it and thinking, like, that's it. This is the work I really want to be doing. I got very excited about it, and I thought, this exists. Like, so I took the interview, took the leap, got the job, and it's been a great fit because that's what I've been doing ever since. Along the way, as part of that job, I learned how to use the software, not just like Zoom text, but JAWS and screen readers and troubleshooting, remediating documents for accessibility, Braille. And I started doing accessibility testing as well. So we did consulting for companies, much like I do now. And what I love about this path is that it feels very full circle to me. I get to help improve the experience, but I'm also teaching people how to access it in a way that works for them. And then I can also bring clear feedback um, and the user experience back to the designers and developers because I work kind of both ends of these things. So I get to literally every day experience people's reactions to these things. And then sometimes, even if I'm not working with a company, I'll contact them and say, hey, this is what I do. This is what we were doing. I want you to know this because your team might want to address it. So that's uh that's the way it happened.
I could hear a lot of passion in there.
Yeah.
And
It's not what I went to school for. A lot of people ask me that. I did not. I was social sciences. So
that's the way it always happens.
right, right.
I've found a lot of people that have gone down a path, and if you look up many people's backgrounds, you'll find out that where they landed is not exactly where they started. And that's the
Hmm.
hope of this podcast is to give
Yeah.
others, some light into how others have moved through this thing called user experience. And you mentioned that word. I would love to know, how do you define it? And then why do you think it is important? I think you already indicated some of that in some of your story so far.
To me, user experience, it's the full end-to-end journey of using something, whatever that is. It's what you're trying to do, steps it takes to do it, how clear and how workable it is along the way. It's how we interact with anything people design, the apps, websites, physical products, and even physical spaces. Uh, and when the user design is strong, it's intuitive and the language makes sense. Navigation feels predictable. You get helpful feedback. So you know what's happening, like if you miss a form field or something. And if something goes wrong, you can recover without getting stuck. And that's a really big key item. And accessibility is a core part of that. A product doesn't really have a good user experience if only some people can use it. For example, if a checkout form can't be completed with a keyboard or a button isn't labeled for a screen reader, the whole experience is broken down. Not because the user did anything wrong, but because the design didn't include them. And so good UX, good user design is inclusive by default. If that, it's not an add-on, it just is.
Yeah, great words to live by. And as you said, it's just not being included. And that's something important that we need to think about. And the way you're pursuing it in with your organization and your passion is definitely very clear. And I was interested, you talked about your journey. You started one place, you went to another. Is
Mhm.
there some kind of mantra of how you adapt to change? Is there something that you're applying to your current position that you always are thinking about when it comes to adaptation?
Adapting change is one of the biggest challenges of what I do. It's in my work, it's constant. Every day is adapting to change. And I've learned to assume that what works today might not work tomorrow. Because once something feels settled, it only takes one update right around the corner to derail things. And it used to be we would learn things and then we were good for a few years. And you didn't have a Windows update every other minute or something like that, or a slight tweaks to a web page. But those things can break accessibility, even if you're not doing something related. So we have to be kind of nimble in our approach, and always just expecting that we think we know how we're going to do this, but something could come up. So I try to stay open to learning new ways of accessing information, whether it's new keyboard commands and functions that have been created, figuring out new workflows through an app or site or what have you, new navigation patterns. And I've had to accept that this process is always evolving. So, um, practically speaking, I use a simple framework. So I watch for what changed. I retest the core tasks and I write down the new pattern so I don't have to relearn it later. And core tasks might be logging in, navigation menus, completing forms, joining meetings, reading, sending emails. And this is especially true for keyboard users. The other piece I would say is expectation setting. And I teach the underlying concepts like a website, it could be headings, focus order, keyboard shortcuts, and where the accessibility settings tend to live. So people can transfer those skills when a layout changes or they encounter something new. And tell people like if an update breaks something, we pick a workaround, we keep moving. I'm upfront with my clients and students that this works today, but we're going to work on skills that will also help you if it changes tomorrow. And I think that combination of skills, and maybe a little resilient, makes all of that change more manageable.
I love how, one update away from
Yeah,
change and that
yeah,
constant learning. And that takes a lot of energy. I mean,
yeah.
somebody that is always in that mindset of learning, but it's important because of
Mhm.
how often things are changing. And I like how you talked about how you're making little notes to yourself. And I think that's also important that just don't rely on your memory. Like you
Yeah.
you need to make some notations. But part of that learning, I'm curious. I mean, is there something that you've seen, some kind of current hype in the industry or something that you've seen there within, I guess, the last 6 months that just can't be ignored? And why should we not ignore it?
Yeah, and it might be a predictable answer, but it's AI, and I personally have a love-hate feeling for it. But it can it's not just because it's trendy, right? It's being built into all the tools people are already using, search, writing, meetings, everyday apps. And when it's implemented thoughtfully, it can remove friction for a lot of people, and especially people with disabilities. I've seen it used in very practical ways. So, someone recovering from a stroke has used AI in their writing to help organize their thoughts. Someone who struggles with spelling, it can help make their communication clearer and more professional. Um, People can use it to get better descriptions shopping online if they cannot see things or if the alt text is missing from a picture. They get they can, it's their workaround, right? Sometimes AI is their workaround. And these everyday use cases can make a real difference for people. And I also see value in it in supportive use cases. So things like summarizing long, dense information into the relevant key points, rephrasing content into plainer language, which is actually part of accessibility. It could help someone draft messages or do some work if fatigue or cognitive load makes writing harder. In meetings, it can help you focus by generating notes that you can reference later. It captures the action items for things, so it can sift through that material. It can give you a good recap. So it's not a perfect source of truth. I think we all have heard stories about, the misinformation that sometimes it can give, but as a starting point that someone can review and correct, I think that it has really good potential. That said, AI has real limitations. You had to know I was going to go there. So it can be wrong or overly confident. It can miss context. It can introduce bias. We've seen the research on these things. And there are also privacy and data handling considerations for its use, especially when people are pasting sensitive information into it, um, or using it on a document or something where sensitive information is part of that. In the accessibility space, I'm cautious about the, automation overlays that are used for accessibility. They claim they can detect and fix everything. And I've actually evaluated some of them, and they're not consistent, even on the same site multiple times. And in several cases, they actually made the navigation worse. And there were like a section I could get through, suddenly I can't even access. So, you know, there's nothing that replaces the thinking of a human to actually fix it and do it right, right? Um, but it does help when you're doing accessibility testing on some tasks, like do we have more than one heading one? It can check code easily. Do all the images have alt text, right? And then if they don't, you can say, oh, that's just decorative, it doesn't need it, or oh yeah, we missed that one, right? But it doesn't replace thoughtful design, solid code built with accessibility in mind from the start. And it really definitely doesn't replace human evaluation. AI doesn't interact with the interfaces the way that people do. It's looking at the code. We're looking at the design. Um, and that is even more true when you add in assistive technologies. So I think that the hype it shouldn't be ignored. It is opportunity, but with a sensible approach, a responsible approach. So if you use AI to assist people and not to replace good design practices, building accessibility in from the start, testing it with real users, including the users of these
Hmm.
adaptations, treat AI outputs as drafts that need human review. Um, the stakes of this are someone's ability to access information or complete the task you're designing. So, if you want to be a good user experience, you've got to use a little bit of human power there.
I support everything you say.
Thank
And
you.
what's interesting about it is you started with some of the pros. Obviously, it sounds like there's a lot of cons, But at the same
Mhm.
point, the word that stuck out to me was thoughtful. Being
Yeah.
thoughtful of how we're using it because it's being baked into everything
Yes.
and there's no stopping that. But we
No.
can be more cognizant of how that's going to be integrated into our lives. And
Hmm.
really liked everything you said there.
Thank you.
One question I have, and I know it's probably one that is hard to answer, but you talked about how you came into your position,
Mhm.
how you're continuing to feed the passion of your position, how changes are making you twist and turn and go down other paths.
Yeah.
But what advice would you give to someone that's thinking about, hey, what Jen is talking about really sounds like something that I want to do? What would you recommend the path they should follow?
Well, I'd start by saying there are a couple of different ways to get into this kind of work. Some people come in through assistive technology and training, and some people come in through user design or engineering, um, and specialize in the accessibility. And both paths are valid. And the common thread is being genuinely curious about how people are using things, especially technology, in my case, and being willing to learn from the people you're trying to support. If you're considering a career change, I definitely recommend doing a little field research first. Talk with people in the roles you're interested in, ask what their day-to-day looks like, and if you can, shadow someone or volunteer in a setting where accessibility support is provided. Even a few conversations can help you figure out whether you're drawn into teaching and coaching or more to product work like design and evaluation. Uh, if you're looking at a broad assistive technology certification, like the Assistive Technology Professional, the ATP from RESNA, which I hold, that's the Rehab Engineering Society of North America, it's worth knowing that it is a big commitment. You'll spend a lot of time studying, and it typically requires a college degree. In fact, I think it does require one. The scope is very wide. You learn about many, many different disabilities, what they look like in real life, what kind of adaptations can support people effectively. And for me, it actually took a couple years to study and complete. Uh, like most people facing work, the real growth comes from the supervised practice, learning how to assess needs, teach skills, troubleshoot in the moment. Um, there are also product specific certifications people can get, like JAWS or other individual applications, and they can be really useful, but they don't always teach you how to train other people, and they usually don't provide the broader background. So for that one, it would be like different eye conditions, learning differences that people have, and so on. So in my experience, having a mentor or a structured program can make a huge difference, both for skill building and for learning the individual, professional boundaries around what you should or should not advise around. um, if you're leaning more toward UX, I'd recommend building a foundation of in core UX skills. So research, information architecture, content design, usability testing, and then layering accessibility on top of that. And a simple way to start would be like pick a common workflow, like signing up for a service or checking out online. Evaluate it with a keyboard only, with a screen reader, enlarge your screen to a very high level and use magnification. Document what works, what breaks, what you'd change. That kind of practice builds empathy and a portfolio you can talk about. And for that end, for learning, I have found that Coursera.org and edX.org are not only low risk places to start, but they're very high quality education where you can explore material or explore classes related to both accessibility and user design. They're connected to, one of them is connected to the W3C, who the architects of the web, right? Um, and they set many, if not most, of the standards for web accessibility and design guidelines. If you can, join accessibility or UX communities, attend meetups, and find people like maybe you who are willing to talk about the process and your experience, answer your questions. I think in a lot of ways the careers in these spaces are built one project at a time, one relationship at a time, and it very much is like following a little path that leads you from one place to the other.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, the two things that jumped out to me was one, you want to get hands-on,
Mhm.
and then you want to step into someone's shoes as well and
Yeah.
try to envision that. And that's there's a lot in there, Jen,
Yeah.
for someone to
Yeah.
discover.
There's a
But
lot.
I mean, that's why this space needs professionals because
Yeah.
it is very detail oriented. And I
Mhm.
tell a lot of people the same thing. So I really appreciate you being on the podcast. If
Thank
someone
you.
wanted to find more about you and what you're doing, where should they go?
I think the first place you could check out our website, it's lakesideaccessibility.com. I know it's long, but yeah, lakesideaccessibility.com. I'm on LinkedIn. Um, those are our big ones. And we do have contact form. It comes to me directly. Um, I think those would probably be the best ways. If you want to email me, you can email me at jen@lakesideaccessibility.com if you have a specific question or something related to what we were talking about. I'd love to talk to you.
Well, I thank you for being on the podcast and thanks for
Thank you.
sharing your wisdom and your story.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks.